On August the 13th and 14th, the Russian armed forces conducted offensive operations in the area of Yunakovka and Sadki. At the same time, the Ukrainian armed forces conducted their counterattacks in the area of Stepnoye, Yablonovka and Novokonstantinovka. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have announced the situation in the Sumy region. The representative of the Ukrainian Border Service, Andrey Demchenko, stated that Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups are trying to penetrate into unspecified areas of the Sumy region. On August the 14th, an enemy FPV drone attacked a civilian vehicle in the Yunakovka community. A Z-War correspondent associated with the northern group of Russian forces stated that units of the 40th Marine Brigade and the 382nd Marine Battalion of the Russian Armed Forces retreated from Sumy region towards the international border and are now scattered chaotically in the area of Yelizavetovka in the Kursk region. He also stated that the recent rotation to replace units of the 155th Marine Brigade with units of the 810th Brigade in Alekseyevka was very difficult. In fact, the rotation was carried out, but not as effectively and efficiently as the Kremlin would have liked. Anvar drone operators strike Ukrainian Armed Forces positions in the Mogritsa area, and Rubicon drones strike positions in the Kiyanitsa area. Recall recently, Ukraine's defense forces have liberated the village of Bezsalivka in Sumy Oblast from the Russian occupying forces. The operation involved units from the 33rd Assault Regiment and the 24th Assault Battalion. Bezsalivka, a village of 91 residents located on the Volfa River at the border with Russia, sits within the Bilopilia territorial community. The village's position places it approximately 30 kilometers west of heavier fighting elsewhere in the Sumy Oblast, where Russian troops have advanced to within 30 kilometers of the regional capital. According to Yuri Zak, head of the Bilopilia community, several residents remained in Bezsalivka as of early July, despite refusing evacuation offers. The liberation represents part of Ukraine's recent counter-offensive efforts in the border oblast. Ukrainian forces pushed Russian forces out of several small villages at the end of July, following a period when Ukraine's defense of the area stabilized over June. The fighting intensifies more than 2 months after Russia opened this northeastern front. Russian forces made significant gains on Ukraine's side of Sumy Oblast over May and June, shortly after Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the military to begin creating a security buffer zone along the border with Ukraine. The current operations follow Ukraine's earlier successes in the oblast. On the 25th of July, the 225th Assault Regiment completed clearing and securing the village of Kindrativka in Sumy Oblast. In June, President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that defense forces had succeeded in pushing Russian troops from Sumy Oblast's border areas, including the liberation of Andreyevka. The commander of the assault squad of the Special Forces Unit Artan of the HUR with the call sign Democrat spoke about his combat routine in the material of the TV channel We Are Ukraine. The intelligence officer said that he entered the military academy back in 2019, which he graduated 5 years later. The HUR officer noted that immediately after graduation in 2024, he went on his first special operation in the Kyiv region. The special forces consolidated their position in Lipovtsi, but after that the enemy launched artillery strikes for 10 minutes. A message came over the radio from a nearby observation post about the death of Democrat's friend. We studied together, constantly communicated, played sports. The 22-year-old officer recalled in a conversation with journalist Tatyana Demuk. The intelligence officer did not have time for psychological recovery. The next special operation followed in the Zaporizhia region. The task was to cross the bridge, engage in battle, and take prisoners, noted Democrat. The intelligence officer called the capture of the occupiers a small special operation which had to be discussed in whispers in each other's ears with gestures and by writing down options in notebooks. Both prisoners can be seen in the video. One of them has the call sign Ampere. The commander of the assault squad admitted to his interlocutor that he was ready to serve until retirement. "I like being an officer and a leader," the military man summed up. Recall recently the units of the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Skala managed to capture 32 Russian servicemen in a week. According to the regiment, the prisoners were Russian soldiers who were preparing to conduct assault operations on the positions of Ukrainian defenders. When asked why they went to fight against Ukraine, each of them began to make up their own excuses, telling about the poor attitude of their commanders and that they had been deceived and ignorantly sent to the front. Despite these explanations, the captured Russian soldiers have now become those who will potentially replenish the exchange fund and allow for exchange of Ukrainian defenders in the future. It should be noted that as of today, the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Skala is operating in the Kharkiv region, where it is destroying Russian invaders who are trying to seize Ukrainian territory. In addition, recently, the soldiers of the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Skala conducted assault operations near the village of Milov in the Kharkiv region. Russian infantry groups that had advances near Dobropilya are currently being detected and destroyed by the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Lieutenant Colonel Viktor Trehubov, spokesperson of the Operational Command Dnipro, stated this on Espresso TV. While the situation in the Pokrovsk sector and the Russian advance near Dobropilya should not be underestimated, it should not be exaggerated either. A small number of infantry groups penetrated past Ukrainian positions, then joined forces and moved further. This is a small force without heavy equipment. Moreover, this movement on the map reflects a route rather than territory controlled by the Russians. What we see on the map is not under Russian control, but indicates the direction of Russian movement. They are now stuck at the end of this route and are being destroyed there. That is the situation, Trehubov said. The lieutenant colonel explained that the main reason for the rapid Russian advance was a shortage of personnel in Ukrainian units. There are no tanks there. The Russians have only a few small infantry groups. Yes, they managed to slip past Ukrainian positions. This happened because there were not enough people. At the time of the Russian advance, we had an insufficient number of personnel to detect and destroy them, he added. Recall on August the 9th, Deep State reported that Russian forces are attacking Dobropilya with the 132nd Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade, made up mostly of residents from temporarily occupied parts of the Donetsk region and migrants from Central Asia. On August the 12th, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, ordered additional troops and equipment to be sent to eliminate sabotage groups in the Pokrovsk direction. President Volodymyr Zelensky reported that military briefings on the frontline situation had been presented, including in the Dobropilya and Pokrovsk areas. Dobropilya lies 94 kilometers northwest of Russian-occupied Donetsk and about 22 kilometers north of the embattled town of Pokrovsk. According to the Ukrainian military's Strategic Communications Department, Russian forces are employing infiltration tactics by sending small groups of troops beyond the first line of defense, often incurring significant losses. Strategic Communications Department claimed that this approach, used near Dobropilya, did not result in any breakthrough. In one instance, a small Russian unit bypassed Ukrainian positions and attempted to conceal itself behind the front lines. Strategic Communications Department claimed Russia previously used such tactics near Pokrovsk last week and failed. According to the statement,